Okay, good morning. We're out here at the edge of Ginninderry, nearly at Shepherd's Crossing, further down the road. Just sitting in a paddock, admiring this valley in front, other than the very slowly lifting fog for the morning. There's been very little wind and it's only just starting to kick up a little bit now. So there's plenty of fog just hanging around in the valley. But the reason I'm out here on my own instead of having a fly with the guys this morning is because I want to give the T1 Ranger with the O4 Air unit and my new Goggles 3 an actual range test, just flying from this hill straight out, probably towards Pig Hill in the distance, the big mountain on the left. It's got a big patch on top where people used to do hang gliding. Although I want to avoid any wedge-tailed eagles, so I might actually stay away from the hills and just stay in the middle of the valley and just fly straight out. I guess the goal is to see whether at a full 60 megabit setting the plane can comfortably hit 10 Ks, and if it does, then I'll just keep flying a little further and see what it feels and looks like at 12 Ks, which is what the old original Air unit and my Goggles version 1 can comfortably achieve with good line of sight on a good day. The original Air unit and Goggles V1 or V2 do definitely have better range and recovery on 25 megabit mode compared to 50 megabits. But I am going to start off with the O4 today on 60 megabits, the highest megabit rating out of any of the DJI systems so far, just to really sort of see what it can do at its most demanding settings. So yep, it's not too breezy. As I said, it's only just gently starting to kick up a little now. I'll probably just try and sit the plane on a comfortable cruise, maybe 4.5 amps, and make sure that it's sitting pretty steady, and just fly into the distance and see how we go. Reason I'm doing this, of course, is to know the limitations of the system, but also that when I was Googling the system for myself, trying to decide whether to buy it, it didn't seem like YouTube had any actual range tests with reasonable data, other than mini quad flyers sort of going up mountains and valleys, most of them not actually saying what distance they managed. So yeah, this will be a good test for myself and hopefully useful to those that are considering the upgrade as well, just to see how it does out in the open and just flying straight out. Alright, I'll get set up and we'll see how it goes. Check that I've got movement. Yes, I do. Awesome. The only thing I've touched since the last weekend's flight was oh, GPS already, nice, was to cover up the gaps. Don't know if you can see it, but there are gaps in between the hinges of ailerons as well as the elevator, so I've covered over those with a bit of UHU pour and blender tape. Alright, I've got GPS. I'm going to fire up the video system and try and launch this thing before it overheats. CG, of course. Alright, where I'm balancing at the moment, which is basically the front of the hatch handle that a lot of people use, is just putting my fingers at the front end of the spar little slot into the wind. Slightly nose heavy, but that's fine. That's pretty good. Goggles on. Button. Antennas are up. Video power on. Yep, we've got OSD. Recording will start once I launch. Alright, looks like we're good to go. 14 satellites, 60 megabits. Nice. Okay, auto launch is on, arm is on. Today I'm just going to set it to cruise mode once it's out of auto launch. 50% throttle. I'm going to have a crosswind, but this plane should be fine. I'm going to go a little bit this way. It really doesn't have much thrust on 3S, but hey, it's a lot better than the first couple of launches. No eagles around. Nice, we're away, and it's just going to go into cruise mode, so I better take over now. Catch you later. Alright, we're back. Landed on just over 10 volts, so still had some power to go if I wanted to cruise around a little bit longer as well. So I will admit, I was pretty nervous cruising along at such a low bit rate, way off in the distance. Yeah, the heart started pumping after about probably 10 Ks. But I decided, well, since I made 10, let's see if I can make the, let's just turn this thing off, hang on. Better? Okay. Yeah, so as I was saying, after about 10 Ks at low bit rate, and I think the orange and red lines at the bottom of the goggle screen certainly contributed to to that anxiety, whereas on the V1 and V2 goggles you don't really get that. You kind of just start getting all sketchy and out of focus on the edges, and then blocky in the middle, and then it eventually goes. Whereas with this plane, or rather with this O4 air unit and goggles 3, what was really impressive was even at 3 to 4 megabits, and you know, the angry red line across the bottom, it was still hanging on and it still looked really nice. So that was quite impressive. Such a stable signal and stable image, given how low a bit rate it was getting. So I got to 10 Ks and I thought, well, you know, let's see if I can make 12, and then I made 12, and I thought, well, the hard limit of the old system was 13.2. So I thought, all right, I'll get to 13.2 just to show that it can do it. Got there and went, well, let's see what it can really do. And I just kept going. And yeah, I mean, 15 Ks rolled around, and then, you know, I just thought, well, 15 is a nice number. I could turn around, but it's still sitting steady at 3 to 4 megabits. So let's just go a little bit more. And yeah, I got to 16. I looked at my battery voltage, wasn't sure if I had a bit of a headwind to come back, and thought, okay, I'm chickening out at 16 Ks. But geez, you know, having a stable image that still looked lovely at 16 kilometers out, on this tiny little plane that was recording in 2K60. Yeah, very impressed. So hopefully that information is helpful to people who are still trying to decide, is it worth it? You did have to have your head pointed exactly, you know, where you were flying, out sort of beyond probably even 8 Ks. So they're reasonably directional antennas that are built into the goggles. So I had to definitely keep my head not only pointed in the right direction, but I had to experiment with the tilt as well, and just try and keep my neck, you know, in exactly the right spot to maintain 3 to 4 megabits as I got further and further out. I guess I didn't test what happens when you lose signal altogether, and how quickly the system responds and reconnects once you flick it into RTH and come back. The plan today was to fly the original system back to back, just to see how I feel about the old goggles. So I'll have a little bit of a break, a little bit of a snack, move back into the shade here, and then fire up the old Reptile Dragon and give that a fly around as well. You know, being the original camera of the DJI system, is still the best image of the V1 and V2 series. So it'll be interesting going back to back. 3 batteries on this plane, and then back to the V1 system.